I used to sit in jazz band and I'd have a solo coming up and I'd be playing on autopilot, the part that was in front of me, but I would be thinking, what am I going to play during my solo? Specifically the first line. I would stress about it. I would stew. I would sometimes come up with a line in advance and just play something kind of pre-composed for the first thing that I play during my solo. And over the years, after doing a lot of improvising and a lot of teaching and helping other people learn to improvise, I've really settled into this idea that it doesn't matter what you play first. And the more you think about it, the worse your solo is going to be. There's a few reasons. I'm going to talk about all of it. So here we go. Let's get into it. When you're thinking of something to play, you're not listening. And when you have something prepared, it's kind of like having a rehearsed script. There's a part of your brain that turns off and you're not thinking or you're not hearing what's going on around you in real time. And when you're improvising and playing music, it's all about listening, right? So if you're thinking and your ears are turned off, then you're not listening. So that's a big no-no. We don't want to do that. And here's the other more, I think, profound reason why it's important to not worry so much about the first thing that you play. To illustrate this point, I've got a couple of sort of odd examples. Actually, one of them is odd. The other one is sort of in the realm of improvisation. So let's do the weird one first for fun. I remember seeing this video a while back on YouTube. It's of a music festival, and there's a guy without a shirt on, and he's dancing in the middle of this field, and he's by himself, and people are just staring at him. And this goes on for a while. And then eventually, another guy comes up and joins this first guy. And that starts this chain reaction of a huge dance party. And hundreds of people come together and are now dancing crazily together. It's great. But the moral of the video, or the theme, or the lesson, the message of the video is that it's not the first guy that really started that dance party. Of course, he had something to do with it, but it was the second guy that really got everybody into it and sort of legitimized the first guy. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is a book called Improv Wisdom, which I read recently, which is not about music specifically. It's more of a theater-based improv, but the author applies the lessons of theater improv to life, and then, of course, you can apply it to music because improvisation is a key ingredient of music. So I'm going to read this particular quote. It goes like this. To respond to a question or start improvised scenes, begin immediately using the first words that come to you. Trust your mind. Your first thought is a reasonable starting place. It is good enough. Don't hesitate. Once you begin speaking, you have something to work with and build on. With the first thought method, it is as if the idea selects you rather than the other way around. The improviser focuses on making that idea into a good one rather than searching for a good idea. That last part is the most important. So it's all about the second thing you play, not the first thing you play. That's the crux of this video. But the question, of course, is, how do you do it? That's the question. How do you do it? The fastest way into this is to develop your ideas. And how do you do that? You use repetition. That is sort of the key ingredient. And a great resource for learning how to repeat yourself in a musical way and develop your ideas is actually not in improvised solos, but looking at melodies, because that's what melodies are doing. Good melodies develop and build on ideas. So we're going to take a look at one of my favorite melodies, and one that I'm sure many of you jazz musicians are familiar with. It's All of Me, the standard, the jazz standard, All of Me. All right, so we're going to do a quick look at All of Me now. And after we do that, I'm actually going to write a new solo or melody, whatever you want to call it, over the same chord changes so you can hear how we apply these lessons to something new. But let's take a quick look at this melody here because it demonstrates what I've been talking about really, really well, about repeating ideas and developing ideas. So the first line right here, it goes like this. It's not that exciting. It's a C major arpeggio over a C6 chord. It's about as basic as you can get. And that's because the first thing you play doesn't matter. It's what happens next that matters. This right in here, this first line, that's the first dancer at that music festival. It's the second dancer that makes things interesting. Right in here, we're going to play Now, this, as you can probably hear and see, is very similar to this. It's 3 notes, it's going down, the shape is just going down, and it's another arpeggio. We're just changing the notes from C, G, E to B, G sharp, E, so that the notes actually fit the chord, which is E7. We're changing them ever so slightly. I call this massaging. You're massaging the first phrase into the chord right there. Let's go on. We've got A, G, E. Same thing, we've got 3 notes going down, and they line up to fit the chord. On the D minor 7 here, where it goes, it's sort of a release from that repetitive development of the idea. I call this the Lionel Richie, and if you've taken my course, The Soloing System, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't taken the soloing system, there's a link in the description where you can learn more about that. But let's quickly go through the rest of this A section. We've got the same thing here that we have here. Going down, 3 notes. One other thing that's really interesting about this melody that I want to point out. Look at this. We've got a C right here, then a B right here. I'm actually going to highlight these so you can keep track of them. All right, so we've got C, and then we have B. So C, B, and then A right there, and then G right there to F, and then E to D, and then here's D again, down to C, to B, to A. Do you see what's happening here? And then finally we go A, and then back up, and then there's C. So if we just play the notes in yellow, you get this. And then it resolves up to get back to the 1. It's just one big major scale going down. If you've ever studied guide tone lines, this is a really cool example of how on a macro level, it's just going down the scale, which is why this melody works so well. Let's now take the same chord changes and come up with a new solo that develops something. And I'm really just I'm gonna play something intentionally bad, like wrong, with notes that don't make sense on that very first phrase. And we'll see how we can make sense of it with the second phrase. Let's see how we do. We're gonna start with something bad. Something that makes no sense on a C major chord. We have a C major chord here, and we're gonna start with these 3 notes. Pretty crunchy, but it'll be a challenge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. How do we take this awfulness and make that into something good? Well, I'm just gonna take it up a half step. Suddenly it's resolved and it sounds good. You can make any note sound good if you resolve it well. That's another pro tip. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we have the E7. So let's just keep it going. So that feels pretty balanced. We've got these 3 note groupings. And then it releases into something a little different. Now the end there is an answer. It's a response to the initial 3 note cell. All right, so this is a callback to this. Let's do a quick recap from that D minor 7. I'm going to take this cell and we're going to repeat that on the E7. Hear the relationship? And then going to the A minor 7. Got some soul in there, a little blues action. So this part right in here on the A minor 7 is a callback to, believe it or not, on the E7. Listen for the relationship. And then going on to the D7, which is essentially B, B flat, A, sounds a lot like this. Going to, but let's keep going. We're going to play this line. Hear that relationship from the D7 and then on the D minor 7? Same kind of rhythm happening there, which really helps tie those two together. And then on the G7, let's do a callback all the way to the beginning and play. Actually, I'm going to go down to G here because I already played that A and emphasized it here. And I don't want it to be too repetitive there. I kind of want to end on the G just to switch it up. And this G, by the way, is going to be on a C major 7 chord. So let's play the whole thing through. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to finish writing the solo offline, but you can download it for free at the link in the description below. I'll also include bass clef and parts with note names written in the note heads to make it a little bit easier for those of you who aren't as comfortable reading music. And as I said, if you really want to take your soloing to the next level and get better at this kind of soloing where you're developing your ideas and playing cohesive, non-noodly solos, check out the soloing system. That's my flagship improvisation course. You can't go wrong with it, and it's great for beginners, intermediate students, even advanced. You can apply this to whatever kind of chord progression or level you're at. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.